When Karl Lagerfeld died, it lost its soul. For 36 years, Lagerfeld was Chanel. His vision, his energy, and his ability to make a 100-year-old house feel like tomorrow's headline defined the brand. But now, 3 years after his passing, the void is impossible to ignore. Virginie Viard, his longtime collaborator, inherited the role, but not the magic. Collections feel safe, predictable, almost apologetic. Meanwhile, the business side has gone into overdrive, pushing prices so high that even loyal customers are walking away. The brand that once made luxury feel attainable now makes it feel absurd. What happens when a fashion house forgets how to take risks? How do you modernize an icon without destroying what made it iconic? Because right now, Chanel isn't just expensive, it's irrelevant. Gabrielle Chanel, known as Coco Chanel, was born into poverty in 1883. She was abandoned to a convent orphanage after her mother's death, and that hardship shaped her revolutionary vision. While other women were trapped in corsets and elaborate gowns, Coco dreamed of something radical: freedom through fashion. Her story begins with rebellion. In 1910, she opened her first shop on Paris's Rue Cambon, selling simple hats. But Chanel was not just designing clothes, she was crafting liberation. She borrowed elements from men's wardrobes, clean lines, practical fabrics, and functional designs, and she transformed them into a new feminine aesthetic. This was not mere style, it was sartorial rebellion in an era when women's bodies were literally constrained. Then came 1926, the moment that would cement Chanel's legacy forever. American Vogue published a simple sketch of a black dress with long, narrow sleeves and a tight, straight skirt. They called it Chanel's Ford, as revolutionary and accessible as Henry Ford's Model T. The little black dress was born, democratizing elegance and proving that true luxury was not about ostentation, but versatile simplicity. Perhaps no creation demonstrates Chanel's business genius better than Chanel No. 5. When perfumes were single-note floral essences, Coco created something complex and abstract, the first designer fragrance. When Ernest Beau presented her with fragrance samples numbered 1 through 5 and 20 through 24, she chose the 5th. She explained that she presented her dress collections on the 5th of May, the 5th month of the year, so she wanted to keep the number it bears and that the number 5 would bring good luck. That superstition proved prophetic. Chanel No. 5 became the most famous perfume in history, making luxury accessible to women who could not afford a Chanel suit but could save for a bottle of the perfume. This was Coco's masterstroke, creating entry points to luxury that felt exclusive yet attainable. Despite her success, Chanel's philosophy remained grounded. Coco insisted that luxury must be comfortable, otherwise it is not luxury. This was not just a design principle, but a business ethos. Chanel was not creating museum pieces. She was designing for real women's lives, a radical concept the brand would later abandon. After closing her fashion house during World War II amid controversy over her Nazi associations, many assumed Chanel's career was finished. But in 1954, at age 71, she staged a comeback that shocked the fashion world. While Christian Dior's new look had women cinched and corseted again, Coco returned to her philosophy of elegant comfort. Her comeback collection was initially panned by French critics, but American retailers embraced it immediately, proving Chanel could reinvent herself while staying true to her core values, a delicate balance the house would struggle to maintain after her death. When Karl Lagerfeld was appointed Chanel's creative director in 1983, the fashion world reacted with shock. A German designer at the helm of France's most iconic fashion house? It seemed sacrilegious. Chanel had become a relic, relying on dusty tweed suits and a fading legacy in 1971. The once revolutionary brand had become conservative, predictable, the very antithesis of its founder's spirit. But the Wertheimer family, Chanel's owners, recognized something crucial. They needed someone who could respect tradition while reimagining it for modern times. Lagerfeld was not just a designer, he was a cultural omnivore, absorbing art, literature, music, and street style with equal enthusiasm. He understood that preservation without evolution is just taxidermy. Lagerfeld famously said that respect is not creative. He said he was not there to do what Coco did, but to do what she would have done. The good thing about Chanel, he said, is that it is an idea you can adapt to many things. This became Lagerfeld's genius formula: identifying Chanel's core codes: the tweed suit, the quilted bag, the two-tone shoes, the pearls, the camellias, and constantly reinterpreting them. He was not afraid to play with Chanel's sacred symbols, sometimes reverently, sometimes irreverently, but always recognizably Chanel. The 1990s supermodel era became Chanel's playground. Claudia Schiffer emerged as the quintessential Chanel woman, while Linda Evangelista, Naomi Campbell, and Christy Turlington turned Chanel runways into theatrical events. These were not just fashion shows, they were cultural moments. Lagerfeld transformed the Grand Palais into everything from a Chanel supermarket to a rocket launch pad, understanding that in the emerging digital age, spectacle was currency. When grunge exploded in 1991, many luxury brands recoiled in horror. Lagerfeld embraced it, sending models down the runway in Chanel tweed paired with combat boots and flannel. When hip-hop artists began referencing Chanel in lyrics, Lagerfeld invited them to shows, recognizing cultural credibility could not be bought, it had to be earned. He made high fashion feel rebellious again, precisely because he understood that Coco herself had been a rebel. Under Lagerfeld's direction, Chanel expanded beyond fashion into a complete lifestyle empire. The beauty line grew exponentially, fine jewelry became a serious contender against established houses, and watches emerged as collector's items. Most remarkably, this commercial expansion never felt like selling out because the creative vision remained so strong. The business served the vision, not the other way around, a crucial distinction that would later be reversed. By the early 2000s, Karl Lagerfeld had become as iconic as the brand he designed for. His powdered white ponytail, high-starched collars, fingerless gloves, and dark sunglasses created an instantly recognizable silhouette. He was a master of the quotable soundbite, declaring that sweatpants are a sign of defeat and that he was very much down to earth. Just not this earth. This carefully crafted persona kept Chanel perpetually in headlines, even when the fashion world's attention wandered elsewhere. Under Lagerfeld's direction, Chanel mastered the art of product revival and creation. The 255 handbag, originally designed by Coco in February 1955, was reissued and became a must-have status symbol. In 2011, he launched the Boy bag, inspired by Coco's lover, Boy Capel, creating another instant classic. These were not just accessories, they were investment pieces with waiting lists that stretched for months, even years. Lagerfeld had perfected the art of making exclusivity feel urgent. Chanel's relationship with celebrities evolved beyond traditional endorsements. Instead of merely paying famous faces to appear in campaigns, Lagerfeld created a community of Chanel ambassadors who genuinely seemed to embody different facets of the brand's identity. Kristen Stewart represented its rebellious edge, Keira Knightley its classic elegance, Pharrell Williams its unexpected playfulness. Chanel became the thinking person's luxury choice, signifying not just wealth, but cultural discernment. This cultural cachet translated into staggering financial success. While privately held and secretive about exact numbers, industry analysts estimated Chanel's annual revenue grew from hundreds of millions to over $15 billion during Lagerfeld's tenure. The company achieved something rare in luxury, growth without dilution. While competitors licensed their names for everything from hotel towels to shopping mall sunglasses, Chanel maintained strict control over its products, making more money by selling less. As the brand expanded globally, opening boutiques from Beijing to Buenos Aires, it perfected the delicate balance between accessibility and exclusivity. Walking into a Chanel store in Tokyo felt remarkably similar to visiting the original Rue Cambon location, creating a consistent luxury experience. Yet each region received collections slightly tailored to local tastes. Chanel felt simultaneously universal and intimate, available worldwide, yet somehow still special.
Find a shop that has party things or a shop that has gift things on an app that's packed with things. Download the app and order now.
I got all of this for over 70% off. So what's inside the box, you ask? You get 3
By 2018, Chanel had achieved an almost impossible position in the luxury landscape, a 109-year-old brand that felt timeless rather than dated, exclusive yet influential across popular culture. But this entire ecosystem revolved around one man's seemingly inexhaustible creative energy. The question no one wanted to ask: what would happen when that energy was gone? February 19th, 2019. The fashion world awakened to unthinkable news. Karl Lagerfeld was dead at 85. Despite rumors of declining health, his passing shocked an industry that had come to see him as immortal. For 36 years, the longest designer tenure at any major fashion house, Lagerfeld had been Chanel. His loss created not just a creative vacuum, but an existential crisis for the brand. "I've always known that I was made to live this way," Lagerfeld once said about his relentless work ethic. "I was made to live alone. I was made to have a lot of people around." That paradox, the solitary creator surrounded by a bustling atelier, defined Chanel's creative process for over 3 decades. Now that central figure was gone. The question of succession had always been delicate. Unlike conglomerates like LVMH or Kering, which regularly rotate designers between brands, Chanel had built its modern identity around a single visionary. Industry speculation had swirled for years. Would Hedi Slimane take over? Phoebe Philo? Some unknown talent? Instead, Chanel announced that Virginie Viard, Lagerfeld's studio director and right hand for over 30 years, would assume creative control. On paper, the decision made perfect sense. Viard knew the brand intimately, understood its operations, and had collaborated closely with Lagerfeld on every collection. "Virginie is the most important person, not only for me, but also for the atelier, for everything," Lagerfeld had said. But the appointment placed Viard in an impossible position, tasked with preserving a legacy while establishing her own voice, working in the shadow of a legend while being expected to conjure the same magic. The markets reflected this uncertainty. Though privately held, Chanel's financial instruments showed volatility as investors questioned whether the brand's cultural capital would remain without its charismatic frontman. Industry analysts began publishing speculative pieces with titles like "Can Chanel Survive Without Karl?" and "The Post-Lagerfeld Luxury Landscape." Most concerning wasn't just Lagerfeld's absence, but the timing of it. Fashion was entering a period of radical transformation. Streetwear was ascendant. Sustainability concerns were rising, digital native brands were challenging traditional retail models, and social media was democratizing influence. Chanel had navigated previous cultural shifts because Lagerfeld had an almost supernatural ability to anticipate them. Now the brand would face these challenges without its North Star. Virginie Viard's first collections for Chanel revealed a fundamental shift. Where Lagerfeld created fashion as theater, bold statements designed to generate conversation and excitement, Viard focused on wearability and subtlety. Her designs were technically accomplished, respectful of Chanel's heritage, and commercially viable. What they weren't was exciting. "It's all about clothes," Viard told Vogue, positioning her approach as more practical than her predecessors. But this pragmatism overlooked a crucial truth. Luxury fashion isn't just about clothes, it's about dreams, aspirations, and cultural conversation. Reviews of her collections used words like nice, pleasant, and solid, the fashion equivalent of damning with faint praise. The edge that made Chanel dangerous had been replaced with politeness. As the creative energy waned, the business strategy intensified. Between 2019 and 2023, Chanel implemented price increases that shocked even seasoned luxury shoppers. The classic flat bag, which had sold for around $5,000 in 2019, crossed the $10,000 threshold by 2023, a nearly 40% increase in just 3 years. These were not incremental adjustments, but aggressive repositioning moves. When questioned about these increases, Chanel executives cited raw material costs and currency fluctuations. But industry analysts pointed to a different strategy, elevating the brand into the ultra-luxury stratosphere occupied by Hermes, whose Birkin bags routinely sell for over $20,000. The difference was that Hermes had spent decades establishing scarcity and craftsmanship as justification for its pricing. Chanel's increases felt arbitrary, disconnected from either enhanced quality or creative innovation. Meanwhile, younger consumers were gravitating toward brands that felt more culturally relevant. Bottega Veneta under Daniel Lee captured fashion's imagination with innovative designs that felt fresh yet timeless. Loewe under Jonathan Anderson merged craftsmanship with intellectual playfulness. Jacquemus created Instagram moments with oversized hats and tiny handbags. Even Dior under Maria Grazia Chiuri generated consistent cultural conversation through feminist messaging, even when the clothes themselves received mixed reviews. Chanel attempted to court this younger audience with awkward forays into streetwear and youth culture that never quite landed. A tweed baseball cap priced at $950 felt less like authentic street-style adoption and more like a luxury brand's condescending interpretation of it. Collaborations felt forced rather than organic, and marketing campaigns seemed to chase trends rather than set them. Perhaps most telling was the shift in celebrity alignments. Kristen Stewart, once the perfect embodiment of Chanel's cool rebelliousness, began appearing less frequently in Chanel at major events. Rising stars who would once have coveted Chanel ambassadorships were signing with competing brands that offered stronger creative direction. The Hollywood stylists who determine what appears on red carpets increasingly pulled from other houses, seeking looks that would generate social media buzz, something recent Chanel collections rarely provided. The 2023 Cruise collection should have been Viard's defining moment, a chance to firmly establish her vision for Chanel 3 years into her tenure. Instead, it became a flashpoint for growing industry concerns. Shown in Monaco, a location closely associated with Chanel's history, the collection felt like what one critic called Lagerfeld cosplay, a pastiche of Karl's greatest hits without his spark or daring. Industry insiders no longer whispered but openly questioned whether Chanel needed a complete creative overhaul. One former Chanel executive who requested anonymity said that what we are seeing is the difference between a brilliant design director and a visionary creative director. Virginie executes beautifully, but execution without vision becomes mere product. Customer loyalty, once Chanel's greatest asset, began showing significant cracks. Boutique staff reported a new phenomenon. Long-time clients who had collected Chanel for decades were selling their collections and switching allegiance to other luxury houses. Their complaints were consistent. The quality no longer justified the escalating prices, and the designs no longer generated emotional connection. Data from luxury resale platforms confirmed this exodus. Where Chanel bags had once commanded the highest percentage of original retail price in secondary markets, they were now being outperformed by Hermes, Dior, and even the once struggling Bottega Veneta. Tellingly, vintage Lagerfeld-era Chanel pieces were fetching higher prices than new Viard designs, the market making a clear statement about perceived creative value. Perhaps the most difficult challenge was the comparison trap. Every Viard collection was measured not against her previous work or competitor offerings, but against the ghost of Lagerfeld's legacy. When she adhered closely to his aesthetic, critics called it derivative. When she deviated, they questioned her understanding of the brand. It was an impossible standard that revealed a deeper truth. Chanel had never developed a succession strategy that allowed the brand to transcend any single creative director. The contradiction at Chanel's core has become impossible to ignore: financial success alongside cultural irrelevance. Despite creative stagnation, revenue has continued climbing, largely due to aggressive pricing strategies and expansion in Asian markets where luxury purchases are often more about status signaling than design appreciation. The business model now prioritizes extracting maximum value from existing customers rather than cultivating new ones through innovation. This approach represents a fundamental betrayal of Coco Chanel's original vision. She designed for working women, creating luxury that functioned in real life. She famously said that she did not do fashion, she was fashion. This was not arrogance, but a recognition that her designs emerged from lived experience rather than abstract aestheticism. Today's Chanel has become disconnected from the lives of even wealthy women, creating products so precious and expensive they feel more like investments than fashion. Within the creative team, reports suggest growing frustration. Viard's technical skills are universally respected, but her leadership has not inspired the kind of devotion Lagerfeld commanded. Top talent has quietly migrated to competitors, seeking environments that encourage greater creative risk-taking. The atelier still produces exquisite craftsmanship, but that technical excellence feels increasingly divorced from cultural relevance and emotional resonance. Chanel now occupies an awkward market position, caught between honoring its heritage and finding its future, ultimately satisfying neither. Traditional clients feel alienated by pricing that has outpaced value delivery, while potential new customers see a brand that feels more like their grandmother's aspiration than their own. The brand that once represented the perfect balance between tradition and subversion now embodies neither. Most concerning is Chanel's absence from the current luxury conversation. When fashion insiders discuss innovation, they point to Demna Gvasalia at Balenciaga, Jonathan Anderson at Loewe, or Matteo Blasi at Bottega Veneta. When they discuss sustainable futures, they reference Gabriella Hearst at Chloe or Stella McCartney. When they discuss digital adaptation, they highlight Gucci or Louis Vuitton. Chanel, once at the center of every fashion conversation, has become a peripheral voice. Expensive, yes, but increasingly irrelevant. Can a brand built on revolution survive when it stops revolving? That is the question Chanel must answer. The shadow of Karl Lagerfeld looms large, but clinging to his memory only highlights the creative vacuum his absence created. True homage would mean recapturing his fearlessness, not recycling his ideas. For other heritage brands, Chanel's struggle offers a sobering lesson about succession planning. Creative genius is not transferable by proximity alone. The billion-dollar question is this: will Chanel make the bold move needed to reclaim cultural relevance, or continue its slow drift into beautiful irrelevance?